Hello, my name is Isaac Muthui, CEO and founder of Nurucoin, the first Pan-African blockchain and cryptocurrency. And I would want us to talk a little about Africa and the reason for Africa to start creating their own solutions, because nobody understands Africa more than Africans do. And to just take you a little bit back, I would want us to talk about the education systems in Africa and how they came about. What you need to know is that the education systems that Africa have, they were all originated by the pre-colonial master. And if your grandfather or grandmother ever happened to go to school, they did not go to school because the pre-colonial master wanted the Africans to rule. They took them to school to make them to become better slaves. And if you every child in Africa schools, when they go to school, the first question that teachers ask them is, what would you want to be? And the answer is always, I would want to be a teacher, I would want to be an accountant, I would want to be a doctor. While the colonial master asks their children, what would you want to own? The question, the answer is, I would want to own an hospital. And I'll give you a very good point in focus. You take your child to school, nursery school all the way to university, and after university, your son or daughter becomes a good accountant who has a degree of Bachelor of Commerce and CPAK, and they become a good accountant with the BAT, which is owned by the British, or they become a finance manager with East Africa Breweries, which is owned by Diancho in German, or they become a good accountant with Kakuzi, which is owned by the British, or they become a good accountant with Magadi, which is also owned by the British. They can become a good manager with Airtel, which is owned by Bart Airtel, or they can work as a manager with EPZ, which is owned by all the Indians. That shows you that we work to become slaves in our own countries, because Africans think that the colonial master wanted to fly the flag. Unfortunately, the colonial master wanted to establish systems that control the financial sectors in Africa. They gave us the flag, and all Africa fights for the flag, while the colonial master controls the banks. It is time for us to start thinking like what the Western world are doing. And I'll tell you that if you go to New York and you look at the infrastructure that is at New York, you realize that the underground train system was done over 100 years ago. And I would think that if Africa keeps doing the things that America, Malaysia, Singapore, Germany, Japan did 100 years ago, we are going to arrive at a place called 100 years ago. And what are we supposed to do to make sure that we are not going to do things that they did 100 years ago? A case in point is, every African keeps buying land like we are scrabbling for independence. You go to Silicon Valley, which is California, it's easier to buy land and it's affordable. Within $10,000 to $20,000, you have land. Here in Kenya, for example, in Nairobi, $20,000 you get land where it's almost not valuable. What is it that we have in land that it's more valuable in a third world country than in a first world country? But if you can move to Silicon Valley, which is 600 miles from a place I asked for land in San Bernardino in California, you realize that the top 3 companies in the Silicon Valley, they are equal. The top 5 companies in Silicon Valley, they are equal to the 5 leading African countries in terms of the GDP. And if I were to talk about the GDP of the first 5 countries in Africa, beginning number 5 with Morocco, which the GDP stands number 5, followed by Algeria. Then we go to Egypt number 3, and South Africa number 4, South Africa number 2, Nigeria number 1. If you combine the GDP of those 5 countries, it equals to just around 1.4 trillion US dollars. If you combine the value of 5 biggest companies, tech companies in Silicon Valley, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Alphabet, and Apple, their value is over 3 trillion US dollars, meaning the 5 tech companies in a land which is cheaper than land in Africa, they are double the value of the top 5 African countries. what does that mean? It means that it's either we are doing it wrong, or something must be done. And you know, the future does not belong to them that are living today. The future belongs to them that create it. And it's time Africa starts to learn to create what matters in our times. And to take a case in point, Times Tower has been in existence over 25 years. Google just came the other day, 1998, and they found the Times Tower still there. If you value Times Tower today, it will give you a maximum of 12 billion Kenya shillings. Google, which has only been there for 18 to 20 years, their value is a whole over 630 billion US dollars. Facebook just came the other day with Mark Zuckerberg beginning a website. 12 years down the line, they are valued to over 12 billion US dollars. Africa, we have talent, we have the brains, but I must say that it is time we start creating solutions that compete with the world. There is no single continent that has imported items and they became successful. The statistics are showing that we are importing food in Africa for over 35 billion US dollars. Africa is the only continent that sits in the central hemisphere without extreme summers and without extreme winters. Where do we go wrong? Do we keep on importing? And as long as we are importing, does that grow our continent? We must start doing solutions that go across the border. And the solutions in our times are in technology. Our young men that are in colleges are doing very well with bright ideas, and everybody is coming to Africa to hunt for talent. Microsoft, they are here. Google are here. And one of the things that really makes me unhappy is when I see, for example, Google organizing a conference for the young men in colleges. They invite all the young men in colleges, like 500, the best brains, and they tell them to compete on who does the best applications. And because we do not give value to the intellectual property in Africa, they compete, and the first one is given a laptop and a bag. The second one is given a laptop without a bag. The third one is given a bag without a laptop. And Google pick all these applications, they just change a few things, and within a short time, they are multi-billion applications. Is this going to continue? During our father's time, land mattered. Our time, cyber territory matters. Whoever gets a big title deed in the cyber territory in our times is the one who carries the day. Governments in Africa should look at this with a different eye. Start creating protection of intellectual property and start creating mentorship programs that favor us, because we've got a lot of incubation centers, to me, which are just as scouting centers for the colonial master. They are just a scouting center for the same person who colonized this continent. It is time for Africa to wake up and we start competing with the world with the things that matter in our times. God bless you.